How to create an access control policy in under 10 minutes. Hi, I'm Stuart Barker, the ISO 27001 Ninja, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to create an ISO 27001 access control policy to fully satisfy ISO 27001 2022 Annex A 515 access control. So the fastest way, by far the fastest way to get yourself a copy of this is to go to the High Table website, the ISO 27001 template store, and download yourself a copy of the template. It is part of the ISO 27001 toolkit, the ultimate toolkit for ISO 27001. But failing that, as we go through, pause the video, type it in, and create it for free. So let's jump straight in. You're going to fire up a Microsoft Word document. You're going to put on there your document markup and your version control. We've covered that in previous videos. That's not the purpose of this. Once you've got that, you're going to set out what your contents are. The contents of the access control policy are the purpose, the scope, and the principle. We're going to look at confidentiality agreements, role-based access. We're going to look at unique identifiers, access authentication, access rights review, privileged accounts, administrative accounts, passwords, user account provisioning. We're going to look at levers. We're going to cover off authentication, remote access. We're going to cover off third-party remote access. We're going to cover off monitoring and reporting, and then your policy is going to have a policy compliance section, which is covered in other videos and not part of today's tutorial. So let us jump straight in. Access control policy purpose. The purpose of the policy is to ensure the correct access to the correct information and resources by the correct people. Scope. All employees and third-party users, all systems and applications deemed in scope by the ISO 27001 scope statement. Physical access is out of scope because it's defined in the physical and environmental policy, which we will come on to. Principle. Access control is granted on the principle of least privilege. Users are only provided access to the information they require to perform their role or tasks. Confidentiality agreements. All employees and contractors are given access to confidential information should sign a confidentiality agreement or non-disclosure agreement prior to being given access to information processing facilities. Role-based access. Access to systems is based on role. Access is granted by the business owner, the system owner, or the data owner, and is formally approved. Unique identifier. Users are assigned a unique username or identifier on the principle of one user to one ID. This will ensure individual accountability. Usernames and identifiers are not shared between users. Access authentication. Users are positively identified and authenticated before being granted access or gaining access to system services or information. Access rights review. User access to systems is reviewed at least annually to ensure it is still appropriate and still relevant. Individual, inactive, and dormant accounts are investigated and appropriate action is taken, including the updating of required documentation. The main user access system is reviewed every 90 days to ensure it is still appropriate and relevant. Privileged accounts and administrative accounts. Administrative and administrator accounts are not provided to users, including but not limited to laptops and mobile technology. Where feasible, privileged and administrative users are assigned specific privileged and administrative accounts in addition to their normal account for the specific use on the completion of privileged and administrative tasks. Privileged and administrative accounts are not shared accounts, they're not generic accounts, and they do not share passwords. Privileged and administrative accounts are clearly identifiable. A register of privileged and administrative accounts is maintained. Privileged administrative accounts are logged and monitored. Privileged and administrative accounts are provided for a set period of time. Passwords. Access to systems and information is authenticated via passwords. Initial passwords provided to users must be changed on first use. Vendor supplied and default passwords are changed immediately upon installation. Passwords are not generic. shared, or set at a group level. Passwords are to be kept confidential and not written down. Passwords are not displayed when entered. Passwords are not coded or included in scripts or codes or macros. Passwords are encrypted when transmitted over networks. Now, within the policies that I provide, you can see that there are elements where there is green text. That is for you to review, to change, to delete, to accept. So these are things that go a little bit above and beyond. Let's touch on them. Systems lock out users after 6 failed access attempts, or a number appropriate to you. Passwords have a minimum length and format of 8 characters and a mix of alphanumeric characters, or a format relevant to you. System sessions that are idle for 15 minutes or more require passwords to be entered to regain access, or a time frame appropriate to you. A password history file is maintained to prevent the reuse of passwords for at least 4 cycles, or cycles appropriate to you, and passwords are changed every 90 days, or a time frame appropriate to you, or not at all in line with Microsoft's current guidance. User account provisioning. Account creation, modification, and deletion is performed by authorized personnel and is fully documented. Individual line managers approve account creation, modification, and deletion. Business system or information owners approve access to systems and information. A form is used to clearly indicate the required access, and an authorization email or signature is provided. All users requesting password resets or changes to authentication credentials have their identity verified. Leavers. Line managers and HR inform the account provisioning team of a user's leave date. When a user leaves a company, all access is revoked as a minimum to the main authentication technology and to all systems and data that is recorded in the role-based access list. User IDs, passwords, and authentication credentials of leavers are not reused. Authentication. The main authentication access system, here are a list of requirements, does not display system or application identifiers until the login process has been successfully completed. Display a general notice warning that the computer should only be accessed by authorized users. Not provide help messages during the logon procedure that would aid an unauthorized user. Validate the logon information only on the completion of all input data. If an error condition arises, the system should not indicate which part of the data is correct or incorrect. It should protect against brute force logon attempts. Log on and log of unsuccessful and successful attempts. Provide a log of successful and unsuccessful logon attempts. Raise a security event if a potential attempted or successful breach of logon controls is detected. Not display a password being entered. Not transmit passwords in clear text over a network. Terminate inactive sessions after a defined period of activity, especially in high-risk locations such as public or external areas outside the organization's security management or on mobile devices. Restrict connection times to provide additional security for high-risk applications. Remote access. Remote access to company networks and cloud-based services follows the same rules previously covered by this policy, with the addition of the requirement for two-factor authentication where available. Remote connections are set to disconnect after a set period of time, and a list of users with remote access to internal networks and systems is maintained. Third-party remote access. Access is only granted to third parties under current contract with an appropriate non-disclosure agreement in place. Access is granted for a specific time to a specific system to a specific individual and provided on receipt of a formal, valid, authorized access request. Access is removed immediately on completion of the requirement, and a list of third parties and individuals with access is maintained. Monitoring and reporting. Access to systems is monitored and reported, and actions that directly or indirectly affect or could affect the confidentiality, integrity, or the availability of data are managed via the incident management process. And then your policy has a section on policy compliance, which, as we've touched on, is covered in other tutorial videos. So that is your ISO 27001 access control policy in just under 10 minutes, give or take. I am Stuart Barker. I am the ISO 27001 Ninja. And until the next tutorial video, peace out.